We take back control, and if they decide that it's Parliament which decides, it's a great example of us having control, isn't it?
Well, it depends where you think sovereignty, this sort of mythical word, which means, you know, running our own country. Does sovereignty lie with Parliament, or does it lie with the people? That's the fundamental question. And what happened in this case? Normally, MPs vote for laws. That's how we run the country.
Sorry, it's about whether it lies with Parliament or whether it lies with the Prime Minister, who gets to trigger this.
The people have spoken because Parliament asked the people for once to make a decision. Now what we've got are the establishment trying to frustrate and delay that process, and frankly, I think a lot of us are getting very angry about it.
It's not actually that, is it? It's about whether we live in a parliamentary democracy, and once we hold a consultative referendum, who actually gets to press the button. And when you live in a democracy where you elect MPs to represent you, it should be Parliament.
That's why we had a referendum, because just occasionally there's a decision where Parliament says, we're going to let you, the people, decide this one as opposed to us. Look, I mean, I'm frustrated by it because it's delayed the whole thing, as I see it, by months. However, I don't think it really matters. I'm assuming that this court judgment will uphold the earlier one and that Parliament will get a say, but I don't think it's going to matter. And the reason for that is because the Labour Party, you know, they know that in all those Midlands and Northern seats, so many of their voters wanted Brexit that if they're seen to frustrate it, you know, it would damage their electoral prospects. Do
you think that the voters should get a chance to vote on the actual deal? Because as we've already established in previous interviews that we've done, there was no manifesto for Brexit. There was simply, do you want to remain or do you want to leave? You know, we talked the day after about the pledge that £350 million a week that we send to the EU would come back and be put into the NHS. That was something that many people might have voted on. You yourself, a leading Leave campaigner, said, well, that was a mistake. That was never going to happen.
No, but it could... No, I mean, the point is, you can argue at any election what could or could not happen with money. There's one fundamental point.
Except that in most elections we get a manifesto where we know what we're voting for, and in this case we didn't.
I'll tell you what we did know. We knew that a vote to leave meant leaving the single market, because every single leading campaigner on both sides said, if you vote to leave, you're leaving the single market. And I was pleased. You know, I'm not often nice about the Prime Minister, but I was pleased that last week she made that clear. So, you know, we are going to leave. I agree with you. You know, the terms may not be quite as the 17.4 million people thought, but I'd also think we just need to be seen to be getting on with this.
You've just been in Washington for President Trump's inauguration. Pretty polarising inauguration. He didn't take any prisoners. His 10-minute, 15-minute speech taking down everybody, really, in Washington. Republican, Democrat, they all got coated, talking directly to the people. This is now, I'm your president, not these people. What was it like to be there, and how did you sense the atmosphere?
I think people were a bit shocked because they thought, well, all these things have been said during the campaign. You know, once he was actually there and about to become president, he'd probably backtrack on a fair bit of it. And what he was basically saying was, no, I'm going to stick absolutely to what I told you. And I think, you know, for good or bad, Trump will do what he was voted to do. And in terms of a democracy, that's quite refreshing.
In terms of the relationship between his administration and ours, Theresa May going out there on Friday is a pretty big pat on the back from Trump to Theresa May, saying, you're first, walk through the door, let's talk. I mean, it's good for Britain, isn't it?
Fantastic. I mean, terrific. You know, not only is it good for us to put together a trade deal, not just on goods, but on financial services too. I think that's very important. I think in terms of working together, combating things like global terrorism, again, it puts us in the right place. I'm very excited about it. And it also, for Theresa May, massively strengthens her renegotiating hand in Brussels once Article 50 has been declared.
You know, just to insert an element of scepticism here, what he made clear in his inauguration speech and signing these executive orders is America first. America first doesn't necessarily mean a great deal for Britain and the UK.
If you live in a street, you put your own family first. but it doesn't mean you can't come to an accommodation with your next-door neighbours for mutual benefit. The idea that Trump is completely isolationist is wrong. What he's saying is we will have free trade, but we'll do it with equivalent countries who don't use state subsidies and don't undercut us. And I think this deal is good for both of us. And Mrs May can go to Brussels and say, look, do you know what? The whole world's queuing up to do business with us. Can you please cut a sensible deal here?
We've got to do a pretty significant deal with the US if it's going to come anywhere near matching the deal that we have with our European trading partners.
You've got to remember, I mean, so many politicians talk about Europe and the European Union as if it's the be-all and end-all.
Well, it's 45 to 50% of our imports and exports. It's a massive deal.
It is way less than 20% of the trade that takes place in the world. 4/5 of the global economy is outside the European Union, and what Brexit does is give us a chance to engage with the rest of the world.
It's also, I mean, my take on it is, it is, you know, we have all these exports with the European Union, but why would the individual countries want to give up the money that we're giving them? It doesn't make a lot of sense that they're all going to suddenly turn around and go, we don't want UK money. I mean, the reverse, isn't it?
I mean, bear in mind that the Bavarian finance minister has said how concerned they are about the damage Brexit could do, not to Britain, but to Bavaria.